down in Lafayette. I come down to Lafayette. Article to the sailor. I'll bet you never saw a guy who more naturally and normally wore a pair of cans on his conch than me. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been wearing earphones since I was 3 years old, one form or another. You're listening, friends, to the Electronic Man. Did you hear about this place? This electronic shop that is so hip on the whole civil rights movement that it will not sell integrated circuits? I'm not kidding. I didn't invent it. Nothing like a little you notice I get a lot of body into it? Oh, yeah, you gotta know how this is style. No matter what you do, style is a little bit. I had a friend one time who could crack his knuckles so well. This guy could get a full octave and a half range out of one hand. He used to play Semper Fidelis on the old knuckles. Now, look, this is May 1st, right, gang? Absolutely right. And you don't mind if tonight I indulge myself because this is a historic moment for me. May 1st, and right now I'm drinking a little draft-style root beer. And I might say this, that one of the great lights of my life the last few months has been the resurgence of root beer. Have you noticed now that you can buy good root beer again? That's one of the best things that's happened, believe me, since the invention of the wheel. Well, really, no kidding. Because I think one of the great creations of man is good root beer, and I love good birch beer. Oh, man, I love that birch beer. One of my favorite things about New York is you can go to Grant's. You know Grant's over here, right on Times Square? Oh, well, I would not recommend that you take your Aunt Mildred to Grant's. I'm not recommending anybody. I'm just telling you what I do, man, that's all. I do not say do as I do. I'm telling you what I do. Now, and then one of my favorite things, about 3 o'clock in the morning, real hot, stinky New York, July or August, when the heat is sitting down on New York City like a 300-pound fat lady at a Rotary Club picnic out at the Forest Preserve sitting on a camp chair, you feel the heat. There's a drifting down. It's not moving anywhere. And one of my great erotic experiences during that kind of weather. I've got on a sweaty T-shirt, it says WABC, good guy on it. And, a typical slob art, I got my little straw hat on the top of my head that says, I'm an alcoholic, in case of an emergency, give me a beer, it's typical Jersey humor. And I'm out there walking around with my Tom McCann Indian loafers on. And, this is life. This is life. You're living the way, I got my Sears Roebuck stretch jeans on, and they ain't stretching and they're grabbing me in bad scene, because it's hot out. And I go walking along, cut out through Times Square, and I turn left there on 42nd Street, and I got my shades on, so I don't attract any attention in that scene. That's a scene there, And I go drifting past that newsstand there where they sell all the nudist magazines, and the crowd is all standing there looking at it through their green shades, and this is New York life, and the fuzz is walking around. You hear a couple of guys getting their heads knocked together. It's just regular. It's July, and then I cut left and I go into Grant's. See that great mob, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. All these out of work horse players are sitting around, and I go into Grant's there, and I have them draw me a large schooner of birch beer. See. Birch beer. And the first one I inhale so fast I don't taste it. It's cold, see, and I've been sweating. So the first one I just... And it's gone. And there's a pause, and it hits my gut way down deep in there, and there's a little pause and a little bubbling, and whap! And I relax, see. It's okay, now I'll have one taste. And then I order another. This is you'll admit I'm indulging myself, and there are times, when you have to talk about the real joys of life. I do not think there is a greater joy in this life than, there's several things now that come to think about it. Sometimes when I sit myself down to a big lobster, I get that impression that I died and woke up in heaven. I mean, a real good lobster. Any kind of fish. I can eat any kind. I like squid. You're talking to a guy who likes squid. Any kind of fish. Any kind of fish. I don't know what it is about. I say that if there's any such thing as soul food, I've heard the expression many times, I say soul food must include deep-fried bullheads, catfish. Yes, another type of soul food is corned beef and cabbage. Yeah? Any kind of cabbage, as a matter of fact. You're talking to one of the few guys who, if I could ever find it, I would enjoy cabbage ice cream. Oh, yeah, I like cabbage. I really like cabbage. Sorry. I'm just sorry. Just hearing the truth. The truth hurts a lot of times. It does. I have that second birch beer. You see, I got the second birch beer. And then I move away from the bar with that one, see, guarding it jealously. Because at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in Greenwich, you got to guard everything jealously, see. So I got a hold of that thing with both hands. See, I got both meat hooks on it. And I moved my way over to the clam bar. As you've seen, they have there, see. And I look at this guy and I say, will you please open me up 6 little necks? And he says, 6 little necks coming up. 6 little necks, Manny. And he opens 6 of these up with a screwdriver. He lays them on a tin plate with a little ice. And I go cooling back to the table. I sit down here with my birch beer. And that these little necks are so fresh that they're still talking to each other. They do not know they're about to meet their maker, see? And, well, it's the truth again. You know? So, I'm sitting here with a glass of draft-style root beer. By the way, for those of you who want to experience another feeling of great erotic satisfaction, I would suggest you get yourself some draft-style root beer with a head on it. It's got to have a head on it. See that head there, man? See that? It's got a head on it, see? And then you put about a scoop, maybe a scoop and a half of vanilla ice cream in that. And you just sit back and you just lap that up. When the fuzz finds out about that one, that's going to be illegal. That's so good. It really is. It is so good. And you get yourself a foot-long hot dog. And I would suggest, too, if you want to ever make yourself some hot dogs, man, that just do not stand still in this world, you get yourself some hot dogs, you know, some real good hot dogs, good all-beef type, so maybe with a little touch of garlic in them, you know, the real good, the real walking around hot dogs, you know. And you get yourself some hot dogs. You put them in a great big pot. Do not fry them or stick them on the barbecue. You know, this is for greasy kid stuff, you know, any kind of guy. Put them in a pot, see, with about I'd say about maybe an inch or so of water. Not a lot. I don't want these boiled. I want them steamed, man. About an inch of water. You lay those hot dogs down at the bottom of that big pot, a big pot, with high sides on it. And you turn that heat up until the steam is coming out. See, there's steaming in there. They're not boiling, they're steaming because the tops of the hot dogs are sticking up over the water. In other words, you don't even put enough water in there to cover them. It's steaming like black mad. And then when this thing is steaming real good, you take about a half a can of any kind of beer that you care to take. Let's say Miller. Well, there's a kid. We have Miller on the show tonight. You take about a half a can of beer, and you just pour that beer in there and let that beer steam those hot dogs. Ooh. Why don't we just cut all this radio jazz tonight and go home, huh? And steam up some sauerkraut and, this is terrible, you know. I'll tell you why we're indulging ourselves. Hit the beer button there, will you please? Thank you.
People on the go.
Oh, yeah.
Always seem to know.
I hear you, man.
Miller makes it right.
Miller.
Miller makes it
Yeah,
right.
Miller.
Hearty, robust, deep down good.
Good.
Brew like others wish they could.
Oh,
Miller makes it right.
go right.
Miller makes it right.
Right. Yeah, man, Miller. Oh, excuse me. I'm just out of character here, friends. Yes, Miller makes it right because Miller High Life is the champagne of bottled beer. Every glass of rich, full, hearty, robust, deep down, satisfying, fantastic, unbelievable Miller High Life goes right to where it is, friends. Miller is the champagne of bottled beer. Hear it, man. Yeah.
Miller makes it right. Miller makes it right.
Oh, was that some spot, wasn't it? That's moving that beer across those counters. Let's see, speaking of flat beer, that reminds me this is WOR. WOR. And we're right in the heart of big old fun city here. It's kind of, speaking of erotic things, it's difficult to make this transition from beer to water, but we have a commercial here for water, friends. You know, that's a sad commentary on modern life. The water system is so rotten. The water tastes so crummy. You got to go down to the A&P and buy it in bottles. And that's what's happening, friends. And if you'd like to whip yourself up some coffee that makes it all the way, and you can't stand that stuff that comes out of your faucet, with the tadpoles and all the little chunks of lead and rust and little toads and everything else, well, I would like to suggest Deer Park Spring Water. And you could buy it in a big half-gallon container the next time you shop at Grand Union, Met Food, or any reliable, sober, industrious, on-the-stick grocery store. That's Deer Park Spring Water, America's softest soft drink. Drink water the way Adam drank it. Sure, Adam drank Deer Park Spring Water, got it in a half-gallon container. A&P, D'Agostino. I eat, after all. It's only later that things began to go bad. Well, let's see. This is what they call original sin. And by the way, how are you doing with original sin, friends? Huh? I'm just getting tuned up here. Well, I've got let's see. We've got one more crush. Oh, crush. Yes. Hey, this is springtime too, for the wine business. And one of my favorite spring rituals. And I have several spring rituals. Some of them I can't talk about on the air because, radio hasn't grown up yet. But you know how spring is. Causes all kinds of things to happen. And one of the things that it does cause to happen, and it's an age-old rite in Central Europe, Center Europa, is the spring wine tapping. And, let me tell you, there are more people dancing around maypoles and hollering and throwing flowers at each other than you can shake a stick at. It's spring, and all kinds of rites. And if you're going to have a little rite around your house, friends, spring-type rite, fertility rite, or something that you'd like to have this spring, we'd like to suggest that you consult the local wine cellar in your neighborhood, and you tell them you'd like some Leonard Krush Liebfraumilch. What do you think that stands for? You know what the words mean, huh? I could be the one to tell you. It doesn't stand for rich, robust, hearty flavor. It goes deeper than that. Leonard Krush, great German wines. They have Rhines and Rieslings. And, oh, man, I'll tell you. Radio's coming of age when it's advertising really good stuff. Now, now that the years ago, you couldn't even mention things like wine on the radio. Oh, no. Just think what radio's going to be advertising in 5 years. If we continue. Excuse me for a minute. It's May 1st, and I'm sitting here with a garland of roses in my hair and a nest of robins there behind my left ear. It's spring, Who is it? Only, shucks, it was on the tip of my tongue. Poems are made by fools like me. Who is it? Somebody makes a tree. Oh, well, what the heck. Would you bring me some naval contemplation music, please? Would you, Maharaja? Bring it in there. Excellent. Oh, yeah, that's my navel. Holy smoke. Oh, no. No, I'm seeing nothing but dismalness. What? That is in terrible taste. Please, remove that. Close the door. We're rehearsing the Martha Dean show in the next studio again. Well, we reset that raspberries there, please. And speaking of raspberries, we have a very important announcement. Every year, the Senior Forum at Cheltenham High School in Philadelphia goes out every year, once a year, in the springtime. Of course, it's part of the Spring Madness. Once a year, in the springtime, they go out and select somebody to come and perform before the Cheltenham High School Senior Forum. And they let anybody in the neighborhood come in and see what they have selected for them this year. They always select a magnificent cultural achievement, like some guy that tap dances, somebody that plays a bazooka, somebody plays a marimba. A bazooki? I'm sorry, Robert Bob Burns did not play the bazooki. Bazooki. Listen, the bazooka was an instrument that was played with great distinction by an American. What show did he appear on all the time playing the bazooka? Not the bazooki. You're talking about Manny Dorman. I'm talking about a bazooka player. I'm talking about Manny down there. Bazooki. I'm talking about a bazooka. Did you know that there was such an instrument as the bazooka? Did any of you hear of the bazooka? That's right. You see, only the real people know. Bazooka. My old man used to sit there when that bazooka would come out of the radio. He loved to hear the bazooka being played. It was a terrible sounding instrument on a bad radio. On a good radio with bass, this thing came out so mellow and so rich and ripe. I'll tell you, it brought tears to the eyes. And he played these great tunes like Silver Threads Among the Gold. Yeah. And many brave hearts are asleep in the deep. That was another thing he'd play on the bazooka. And what radio show did he play it on? All this talk of trivia. What radio show did the bazooka find? Huh? Oh, wait a minute. No, you're wrong, Dad. Wait a minute. I didn't say what radio show did it make its debut on. What radio show did it appear regularly on and become famous on? All right. All right. You always get tripped up. There goes Marvin Belli back into his cage. All right. Oh, gee, you can't beat these people. I'll tell you, you just can't. You can't. As a matter of fact, it's truth, right? You can't beat anybody. Not in the end. Oh, no. What radio show? Well, I'll give you a tip. Whenever they made are you listening to me, Bruce? Whenever they made the station break had a theme song, the station break. And they would go, da, 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 da. There, he got it now. Oh, isn't that nice? That's the first thing he's answered in 5 years. He got it. Oh, he's a smart one. Well, nevertheless, I don't know how we got on the subject of bazooka tonight. But, oh, yes, Cheltenham High School, Senior Forum. Don't forget now, if you're living out in the Philadelphia area, I must repeat, this Monday, correct, Emma? This Monday night, Cheltenham High School. That's a big deal out there. That's a big official high school out there. Cheltenham High School, their Senior Forum, they have invited me as being their yearly stop. And I'll be there this coming Monday night. It's going to be at Cheltenham High, Rice Mill Road in Wyncote, PA. That's right outside of Philadelphia. Sponsored by the class of 1968. And if you live around Philly, you just call Cheltenham High School for ticket information. This is the only time I'm going to be in Philadelphia this year, if I can help it. So, oh yeah, I went through Philadelphia here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and my head had a terrible buzz in the head for days after that. Oh, you've been in Philadelphia. I've spent weeks there just on a Sunday. Hail KMH, hail to the foe. All right, now, do you wonder why I'm indulging myself tonight in this idle erotic talk here? Birch beer. This is May 1st. Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. And May 1st is a personal, historical day for me. Each one of us has little days that are historical in our own lives, our own little measly Miniver-Chivi lives. Each one of us has a few little days like, I'm not even talking about birthdays. Birthday's an official historical day. I'm talking about little secret historical days that mark great moments in our lives. And I'm going to tell you, over 12,000 years ago, exactly May 1st, I was hunched over a desk at exactly this hour. That's why I'm telling you this. It was at 10:30 at exactly this hour on a May 1st, wearing a pair of earphones, about to have one of the great, irrevocable experiences of my personal life. And I'm a kid. I'll tell you exactly how much of a kid I was. I was 13. Exactly 13. A freshman in high school. And for over a year and a half before that, do you want to hear about this story? I'm going to tell it to you anyway. It doesn't make a difference. For a year and a half, for over a solid year and a half, maybe 2 years, one thing had burned in my little skull. One thing. To the exclusion of practically everything else. I became, at the age of 10, totally, maniacally, and for life, I might point out, completely sculled out by amateur radio. Now, you can't explain this. First of all, you find it difficult to explain it to women. Women very rarely understand this. I'm not attempting to do this. And those who have never been bitten by the bug do not understand it. It's just it's a thing, it's a mystique. It is, it truly is. Amateur radio is one of those mystiques. It goes far beyond, say, stamp collecting. Everybody dabbles in this. Coin collecting. Everybody dabbles a little bit in coins. Gee, here's a 1903 nickel. I'll save that. No, just by the very nature of amateur radio, the average man has not had to touch his life. And how it happened to me, I had this friend who was going to school with me. You never heard me talk about Ray Galambos. Oh, Ray Galambos. By the way, that reminds me. Speaking of Ray Galambos, just sort of entered my head. I have a terrible joke, which Lee wants me to transmit to you. Don't you want me to transmit a terrible joke? All right, look. Are you a collector of any of jokes that have to do with, like Polish jokes, Italian jokes, anything like that? You can just fill in the blank. Just fill in the blank. Did you hear about the blank that had the heart transplant operation? You can fill in anything you want. Did you hear about the blank that had the heart transplant operation? It rejected him. Okay? Did I tell it all right? No? Did I make a mistake? Well, of course, the heart rejected him. Oh, I see. Well, I assumed that my joke laughers are a little more subtle than that. Anyway. Okay, so I'm a kid, and I got this friend, see, Ray Galambos. And Ray was the sort of a half-baked ball player. Not a very good one, tall, skinny, and he couldn't hit much, but his heart was in his right place. And every day we'd go out and play ball. And one day, I went over to Ray's house to pick Ray up. I had no idea about, Ray. I never met Ray's family or anything, but one day, by some fluke, and it would change my life forever, I go over to Ray's house. And I go into the kitchen. Mrs. Galambos says, come on in. So I'm going to, she's a nice, round lady. I go in the kitchen. I hear these noises in the house. All kinds of, squeals. I hear these noises all around the house. These wild noises. And they're drifting in from some room, someplace away from the kitchen somewhere. And I said, where's Ray? And Mother says, hey, Ray, she's Ray. And I hear Ray in the next room. Ray says, hey, come on in. He says, come on in the next room. Come on in, Shep. So I go through the dining room, and I hear Ray calling me, and I turn right. I go into the bedroom where Ray is, and I'm in the middle of an unbelievable, to me, fairyland. All around the room, there are these lights, meters, and racks all the way to the ceiling. And there, sitting at a desk, is Ray's father, an official-looking guy. Sitting at the desk there, and he's got a microphone in front of him. And he's got this great big radio receiver on the other side of the mic. You see the dials lighting up, and he's got a loudspeaker hanging on the wall. It's all for great-looking stuff, see. And I hear this voice, and he's talking away there. And Ray says, shh, just a minute. Shh. The old man's working Sydney, Australia. He's doing what? He is talking to Sydney, Australia. And old Gil comes back, says, VK3LD, VK3LD, this is W9JZA, coming back. All thoughts of baseball went out of my head. You know, forget it. I wanted to sit there and watch that. You know, the other guys were up knocking out flies. Well, for about 15 minutes, I watch old Columbus working his ham rig. And Ray, of course, was so totally used to it. It didn't mean anything to him particularly. But I had never seen anything like this before. The idea that you could sit in your bedroom and talk to Sydney Australia. And on stuff you made. You know, wow. How can I explain it to you? Well, from that day on, Ray became a very close friend of mine. Actually, I couldn't stand Ray Galabas. But as old man, you know. And so one day, his father deigned to look at me, and he says, and I'm sitting next to the desk watching him day after day. And one day he turns to me and he said, say, Shep, you're Shep, aren't you? And I said, yeah. You're a friend of Ray's, aren't you? Yeah, I've been sitting here now for 3 weeks. Oh, yes, you're the one, huh? Well, why have you been sitting here for 3 weeks? I said, well, Gee, boy, would you let me talk into the microphone once? I said, wow, I didn't just say so. Just a minute here. Fred, and he's in the middle of a QSO with another ham. He says, say, Fred, I've got a visitor here in the shack, and his name is Shep. Yes, S-H-E-P, Sugar Holland Easy Peter, Shep. And I'm going to put Shep on here, and you guys carry on here for a minute. Okay, Shep, here, you take over. I'm going out in the next room, get myself a beer. There I am. The microphone. I said, hi. Old man. My name's Shep. Yeah, Shep. Gee, I could see all the meters flicking every time I talk. The modulation, you know, the VU and everything is flicking up and down. The milliammeter plate meters going, the grid drive meters. And I could see down on the bottom of this big rack, he had these great big 866s, these big mercury vapor rectifiers. And every time I talk, that blue mercury vapor would flick. Say, hi, Gil. Gil didn't tell me where you were. Where are you? It's a kind of nice day here today. You could see already I was a masterful ad-libber. A full grasp of the great flow of the English language. And then Gil comes back into the room, breezy, you know, and he's got a big spine of beer, and he says, okay. He said, all right, Shep, that's very good. All right, that was Shep, Charlie, and this W9JZA turning it back now to K3, blah, blah, blah. And boom, back comes the other guy. And here, drifting out of the distance, somewhere off in the vast, unseen spaces of ether itself, comes a voice talking to me. I was hooked. From that minute on, I was hooked. And I began, from that instant, I planned that one day I would be a ham. And I got all the books, and Gil got me the ARRL question and answer. I had a handbook, manual, antenna manual, Nielsen and Hornung, the whole bit, see. At this whole new world of Kirchhoff's law. And, you know, a lot of you people use the word ohm so glibly. Do you know what is it, an ohm? Yeah, indeed. Oh, yeah. And hertz, megahertz, wavelengths, resonant frequencies. The mu of a 6L6, 6SJ7 GT, high gain and low gain, cathode followers, tritet. The whole thing began to slowly filter into my brain. Night and day I studied. And simultaneously with that, I began to study code. Until at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm lying in the sack and it's hot and the wind is blowing in through the windows and I can smell the steel mills out there, Even when I'm trying to sleep, I can hear code in the air all around me. When you start to study code, that's one of the phenomena that you begin to be. You hear code every place. Even when people are talking, you hear code, you hear the beat and the sound of it. You hear horns blowing, and you can read it. Even when there's no noise at all around you, you somehow hear the sound. It's all around you. Yeah, that's true. I'm not inventing it. It's in the marrow of your bones. And so you get to the point, even when people talk to you, you automatically imagine yourself sending it in code. Yeah, the spoken word begins to mean very little to you. And so when somebody says, ring the bell, you think, the bell, you say to yourself. And, well, it became a monomaniacal, just an all-encompassing thing in my life. So it was like Ahab. I can understand Ahab very much. My white whale was that general ticket. Now, they did not have novice tickets. It was like, in those days, it was like pregnancy. Either you were a ham or you weren't. I mean, there was none of this business of going down to getting a novice ticket. You either got your general, that was it. I'm now 10, see, and I'm now 11. I'm beginning to get the code, see, I'm just starting to learn theory. And I built myself a 2-tube receiver, Super Regen. And then I built myself my first Super Het. And I wound my IF coils myself. And I began slowly to understand what this is about. And at this time, of course, when you learn an esoteric, I suppose you can call it field of learning, you find that you are drifting away from your peers. You are drifting away from even your mother and father and everybody. I remember one time I said to my dad, I'm sitting there early days when I'm studying this stuff, I said, Dad, because my father had always prided himself on being such a great guy with radio. His idea of fixing the radio was to take it out of the cabinet and dust off the bus bar. You can hear, and he always thought that static came from the dust on the bus bar. That's dust. And so one day I said, "Hey, Dad, what is a grid leak?" I said, "A grid leak? Well, everybody knows what a grid leak is. Well, a grid leak is, sometimes some of those tubes leak, and they drip on the bottom of the cabinet. They have to have a thing there." I believed that. Until they kept saying the grid leak has a value of 2 megohms. And then I began to slowly see that grid leaks are not a little thing that you put on the bottom of the tube to keep it from dripping. And that was the beginning of my disillusionment with my old man. And then he began to get bugged with me. See, I would come home and I'd say, "Hey, Dad," I said, the birdies that we're getting on the Scott there, you know what the trouble is. Your second IF stage is beginning to oscillate, and it's way out of tune. The old man's idea of fixing the radio is to take out the thing and polish the tubes, And he'd get bugged. He said, "What do you mean the second IF? Why, I'd say, "No, Dad, no, I'm sorry. Let me work on it this evening." Ooh, he's getting. Here I am, this little crummy, precocious snot, and I'm at the age of 12, and I'm telling the old man, "Well, of course, the second IF's it's oscillating, Dad," and that's what happens when your condensers begin to change value there once in a while, and she slips off, she begins to oscillate. You have to neutralize it again. You're working night. It was just like a maniac. And then came the big day. I couldn't put it off any longer. I could no longer put it off. The last week of March, myself and my buddy Bolus got into a car. He, too, was bitten by the bug. And we went up to Chicago, taken up there by Gil, the old-time famous ham. And every month we would read in QST. They used to publish the number of guys that flunked. Did you know that? And in those days, there was something like maybe a 25 to 30% passing average. Out of 100 guys who would take the exam, maybe 25. These are grown-up guys. And so we get in this car. We drive up to Chicago, to the old post office building at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And there's this great mob of real official-looking guys, gray-haired, slide rules, guys from Western Electric and all that. They're going to take their half exam. There's me and Paul, 13th. We were absolutely the youngest guys to have taken that damn examination in eons up there. And everybody thought, what is it? And we walk in, and they sit us down to all these big code tables. Well, you know how kids are with languages and stuff. They start sending me coded groups. And that was like rolling off a log, and I'm writing it down. like... Now I'm just writing this. And next to me is a guy that's about 50 years old. He's puffing and sweating. He's and he's breaking pencils. I hear his earphones falling off. He's getting scared. I'm writing it down. And he sees me. See, I can see him looking out the corner of his eye. His tongue is hanging out. He's biting it. I'm sitting there writing it down. I wrote down 3 solid minutes of coded groups without a break. Commas, exclamation points, dashes, the whole scene. Coded groups, numbers, punctuation. I write it down. I have passed the code. And this guy next to me is palsied hand. He's got the yellow paper. He looks at me and says, hey, kid. He says, did you take all 3 minutes of it? I said, yeah. I says, I wouldn't take the code test unless I knew I was going to pass it. I wouldn't come up here before. You know how kids are, so competent. He said, really? He said, I've tried to get my exam. This is the 7th time I've come in. They won't let you come in for 90 days. 7 times. This guy's been in for 2 years, every 90 days. And he flunks it every time. That day he passed it. Well, I get my examination. He hands the RI, the guy who's grading the codes, for the code test. He calls me up, and he calls Bolus up, and he gives us our sealed envelopes with our examination direct from Washington. I rip it open and sit back at the table there. I take out the pencil. And they were not multiple choice in those days, friends. You could not fake it. Not one bit. They said the typical question was, design a buffer stage doubling from 40 to 20. Give power supply values. Draw the diagram, and then give a brief explanation of how the buffer stage operates in theory and what problems are encountered in its operation. One question. Covers a lot of ground, friends. About 6,000 questions right there. Then the next question would be, explain the operation of a cathode follower circuit in detail, giving a diagram of a typical cathode follower circuit in its application. And draw a typical waveform of the input of a cathode follower circuit versus the output when it's operating at 17% of efficiency. I start working that stuff out. Well, an hour and a half later, I'm walking down the street with Bolus. The sun is shining. We have taken our examination, and now we can wait. Well, we waited, and we waited. 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, 4 weeks went by, 5 weeks went by. And then at exactly 3:35 p.m., May 1st, put into my mailbox was my amateur radio operator's license and station license with my call letter. W9, Quebec, Washington, Nevada. And I went on the air that night at 7 o'clock. For the first time, 13, sitting in the front bedroom with my doublet antenna hanging up there on the roof with the ZEP feed, and I was running a 6L6 tri-tet oscillator on 40, doubling down from an 80-meter crystal. In case you're interested, friends, my frequency was 7182 kilocycles, right there in the middle of a 40-meter CW band. And I was using a straight Mac key. My receiver, if you're interested in that, was a 7-tube All-Star Superhead, handmade by guess who? And I began to call CQ. I had never, this was a strangely law-abiding era. I had never bootlegged or done any of that prior to this. It was the first time I actually was on the air. And I began to call and call and call and call. And call and call. I called everything I heard. I called CQ. I called and called and called. My input was roughly 2.1 watts. I had 130 volts B eliminator on the final plate. So my output probably was 0.75 watts, something like that. Just enough, possibly, to light very dimly a 2-watt neon bulb. And I am calling, 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 and calling. My family goes to bed. And I'm calling and calling and calling and calling. And then suddenly, all of a sudden out of the darkness, I couldn't believe it. Just about 10 minutes to midnight, I have been calling CQ for about a half an hour because I've given up calling guys. When I hear this, doesn't that sound authentic? That is authentic. He was drifting in. It seemed like he was coming in on a long, swelling sea. You could hear a slight chirp, a slight birdie on his note. It was the first guy that ever came back to me. W2. A guy from the East Coast is coming back. He's all the way out there near New York somewhere. And I'm sitting there, sweat pouring out of every pore. Oh, I can't lose him. I can't lose him. This is my first contact. And then he went... And I immediately... W2KMX. He was in Brooklyn. My signal was 469X. I pulled down a 6. And then I in contact with him for about 4 minutes, and he drifted off down the band, and I lost him, and he lost me. But I've never forgotten it. May 1st, late in the Ice Age.